What a Monday we have in store. We end out week number 9 in the opening half of this 2024 NFL season with Monday Night Football inside Arrowhead Stadium between the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. KC, of course, the only undefeated team left in the National Football League, a perfect 7-0. The Chiefs have covered in 5 of those 7 victories. Looking to make it 8-8 tonight against the shorthanded Tampa Bay Buccaneers and DRS. As we see from the odds, KC expected to remain perfect and unbeaten. 9.5-point spread in favor of the Chiefs. 45.5 is that total. So it's not really a question, DRS, if the Chiefs will remain at 8-0, but can they cover in 6 of 8 victories this year?
Look, you never want to take the Chiefs typically over a touchdown because they're the perfect team that, Ben, is up double digits the entire game, understands that we don't need to win by double digits. Let's just run the clock out. Let's make effective plays here. And if the other team scores a late touchdown and get inside the number, who cares? We're not actually trying to cover spreads. So from that aspect, I do agree that it's hard to bet Kansas City. But also from a Tampa Bay perspective, I don't know how they're going to slow down Kansas City's offense. And Kansas City's offense hasn't been that great this season. But now it looks like Kelsey getting his mojo back, touchdown last week. Another week for Nuke Hopkins getting ingrained into that offense. Patrick Mahomes to say, okay, hey, look at last week. I threw multiple touchdowns. Let's try to do that on a week-to-week basis and get the band back together like we did for so many years. Kareem Hunt should have lanes to run here. And also, the one thing we used to always say about the Kansas City team is, boy, you got to get in the shootouts and beat Kansas City and stay ultra-aggressive. Who would have thought that the better version of the Kansas City Chiefs is not the offense, but the actual Steve Spagnuolo-led defense? They've been sensational.
Yeah, no doubt.
And if you're going to say, hey, look, Tampa Bay is coming to town, Ben. They got Mike Evans. They got Chris Godwin ready to go. Oh, no, they don't have either one of those guys. I look for that defense to just be like a boa constrictor and strangle out that Tampa Bay offense. I think Kansas City does win by double digits tonight, Ben.
Yeah, DRS, when you look at KC, right, it was the story last year. An offense that, by Kansas City Chiefs standards, 23 points per game, middle of the pack in the NFL, was nowhere close to the previous 5 years when KC was a top 10, top 5 scoring offense each and every year, averaging better than 28 points per game. But the difference was a scoring defense that was second best in the NFL, allowing just a tick over 17 points per game. In this year, Kansas City, third best scoring defense entering week 9, allowing just 17.6 points per game. And the Raiders scored a late touchdown last week to cover the number. They were getting 7.5, 8.5 at home. Gardner Minshew scored or threw a touchdown pass with just over 2 minutes. Insignificant for the result, but did affect, of course, the cover and the stats. Now that Kansas City allowed 20 points per game last week. This Chiefs defense is the real deal. And the Buccaneers, DRS, last year, 9-4 against the spread as an underdog. 6 outright wins. Won their first 2 games outright as a dog this year, but now shorthanded. They are going to be booked as an underdog often. And in their last 3 games as a dog, they have not covered in any of the 3. They've also gone over in 5 straight because the defense has allowed 36-plus points in 4 consecutive games. How much offense do we see tonight as we look at the total?
Yeah, by the way, we're getting some breaking news in the NFL, which we're going to get to in just a few moments. But let me finish this question out here. I think we see the Kansas City Chiefs hit their team total tonight. I do think also Patrick Mahomes goes over 1.5 touchdown passes. And I know Kareem Hunt is expensive on offense to score a touchdown tonight. He's scoring a touchdown tonight. I'm all chiefed up for us tonight, Ben.
Yes, you are chiefed up, DRS. You're going over 1.5 passing touchdowns for Patrick Mahomes. But as we focus on the NFC South, only one team is above 500. It's the Atlanta Falcons. Some breaking news right here on this Monday on the early line. Donnie, we kind of talked about it jokingly. Yeah. We said there should be an overhaul in New Orleans. It just occurred. Dennis Allen, in his 3rd year as the Saints head coach, his 9th with the franchise, spent 6 years as Sean Payton's defensive coordinator before being named the head man, has now been fired. The Saints have dropped 7 consecutive games. Again, the breaking news here on this Monday, following the Week 9 Sunday slate, the New Orleans Saints have fired Dennis Allen.
And Dennis Allen should have been fired here. It's almost like the curse of even last year. I was really high on the Saints, not necessarily win the NFC or the Super Bowl, Ben, but just to make the playoffs and win the division. They underperformed last year, didn't get it done. This year, in a topsy-turvy NFC South where anybody could have won it, if you just had any semblance of a decent football team, they're already checked out on the season after an embarrassing loss yesterday. This had to be done the day before the deadline. Now start to make other moves and start to rebuild for the future.
Well said, DRS. We'll talk a little bit more about that and Monday Night Football when Hour 3 starts up next. Welcome to Hour number 3, our third and final live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We start this third and final hour once again with the breaking news in the last 5 minutes around the National Football League after getting beat as a 7-point road favorite yesterday in Carolina by the Panthers to extend a losing skid to 7 consecutive games. The New Orleans Saints have made a much-needed change. The Saints have fired head coach Dennis Allen midway through his third season at the helm in New Orleans. 2-7 this year, DRS, after acquiring Derek Carr and being the odds-on favorite to win the NFC South last year and falling short of expectation at only 9-8, 7-10 in his first year. He will end his 2.5 seasons in New Orleans with an 18-25 record. Dennis Allen has been a head coach in the NFL 6 years now. He has been fired in the middle of his third season at each stint. Way back in 2014 with the Raiders after only 4 weeks. Now in 2024 with New Orleans after only 9 weeks and a 2-7 record to show for it.
And how about the first 2 wins of the season to start off where we were starting to question, oh my goodness, are the Saints the best team in the NFC, a surefire playoff team, and there's no chance the Atlanta Falcons, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or the Carolina Panthers will ever catch this runaway freight train, only for the Philadelphia Eagles to come in and stop their season dead cold with a victory with a lot of injured players here, pulling that out late, and they never recovered from that. The one thing you do know about head coaches getting fired is sometimes they get a little bit longer leash if we don't think the team is talented. That team coming into the season the past few years should have been at least good enough to win the NFC South, at least not compete for a wild card position. The fact that you entered this season with decent expectations, the first 2 games reset those expectations for we not only will make the playoffs, but make a run, only to find yourselves at 2-7, losing to the worst team in football yesterday in embarrassing fashion on the field. This has to be done. They have to restart, and it's done at a good time. You're done on the season. You're not going to make the playoffs. The deadline is tomorrow. No more trying to save the season for a head coach and see if the players can play for them. You should slowly dismantle this team that is way over the salary cap heading into next season as is.
7 years also as the defensive coordinator under Sean Payton before he became the head coach in 2022. So he's been in the Big Easy for nearly a decade and working with the Saints in big positions. Of course, his tenure has come to a close. Donnie, I don't think the Saints can crawl out of this hole to be a playoff team. None of that is going to change like we saw with the Jets firing Robert Saleh. I don't think Dennis Allen is the last coach that we will see dismissed at one point during the season, not just after it. Mike McCarthy probably looking around like, oh boy. Matt Eberflus probably looking around like, uh-oh, we're making some quick changes and swift decisions here midway through the campaign. All right, now as we set the stage for the final game of week number 9, another NFC South team in action. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but they head to the home of the 2-time reigning Super Bowl champs and the only undefeated team left in the NFL, the perfect 7-0 Kansas City Chiefs. What's the best bet for Monday night? We asked all of you in Fade the Public. So, as we look at SportsGrid on Twitter, what is the best bet for Monday Night Football? Chiefs laying 9.5. The Bucs as a hefty road underdog. The over 45 and a hook. The under 45 and a half. DRS, you just said you love it. I know why you love it. You're expecting a KC blowout at home tonight of this shorthanded Tampa team, and yet the public is thinking, hey, Baker and the Bucs have been a great underdog the last year and a half. We can't be expecting Kansas City to cover laying more than a touchdown, and thus I would expect Donnie Rightside is fading the public.
Absolutely. Let's just go back to a little short time ago, last Thursday, I believe, the Jets. Donnie, you idiot. You can't bet the Jets. Did you see the Texans' record as they came in? And I said, you know what? Circumstances provide the results here. That was the Jets were going to get a victory, and they did get a victory, almost in similar fashion of what these numbers are coming out to today, which the public is telling us. The Chiefs at minus 9.5 on the poll, 19.5%. The Buccaneers plus 9.5 on the public poll, 39%. Oh, I love this. I understand. The Buccaneers, they're going to fight you. Yes, I get that. I understand. The Kansas City Chiefs sometimes let their guard down late in football games. I'm not buying it here. And this just reinforces that I'm on the right side once again tonight. How do we love a Bucs team that's battered, bruised, and down for the count right now, that's going to rise up against the Chiefs in Arrowhead and somehow try to steal this game or be in a one-possession football game late in the fourth quarter? The only way you lose this game once again is if Baker Mayfield is still engaged as they're down 14-plus points late in this football game. I'm going against that. The Chiefs absolutely roll tonight. Let's go with something 27-13-ish. How about that?
Yeah. DRS, I actually agree with that thought. I think KC wins this game comfortably. This could be the second spot on the slate that we have seen for week 9, much like Baltimore and Denver, where we're thinking, why is this number 9.5? The Broncos have been a solid team this year. The Buccaneers are a great cover team as an underdog. I'm not so sure. Again, Tampa, 9-4 ATS as a dog last year. Won their first 2 games outright this season as an underdog. The Buccaneers have not covered in their last 3 games as a dog. The Bucs have gone over in 5 straight games. So maybe you're thinking, all right, they'll put up 24 against this Chiefs team, and Kansas City will score just to keep pace to win this game even by a touchdown. I'm not so sure. I lean under 45.5 as well. The Chiefs under in 4 of 7 games this year. The Chiefs have allowed 20 points or less in 6 of 7. The Bucs have been giving up a lot of points in this losing skid, or as they have played worse football, 27-plus points in each of their last 4. I think it's that Chiefs defense that makes it difficult for this shorthanded Buccaneers offense tonight. DRS, I agree with you. By the way, the public in even 8-8 this year, because of course the public was on the Texans. So if the public is on the Bucs, maybe we lean Kansas City tonight. DRS, let's look at the quarterbacks, of course, that will match up on this Monday. Baker Mayfield without his 2 top targets, that being Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Patrick Mahomes, still a negative touchdown to interception ratio this year, but did throw multiple touchdown passes a week ago. Donnie, how do you see the quarterback squaring off tonight in Arrowhead?
Yeah, I like Patrick Mahomes tonight. 247.5. I think that's a legitimate number. They'll be able to move the football. The question to me is which type of offensive explosion are we getting for Kansas City? Is it the methodical drive that ends in touchdowns that takes 5 to 6 minutes, which you do like, but what do we like even more? Give me 4 plays, 62 yards, and a touchdown in 2.5 minutes here. So that 247.5 does make some sense. I do lean towards the over, but I love Patrick Mahomes over 1.5 touchdown passes at a minus 120. He should. I loved, Kelsey back into the offense, finally getting in last week. The pressure is off. You'll be able to get him some more. DeAndre Hopkins, knowing that he has an extra week in that playbook, they're going to utilize him. And what do we always love? You get a new player. He's at home here. You know what? What's the best way to get you into this team environment in that home crowd? Throw a touchdown pass to the guy in the red zone. Make sure you target him here tonight. As I said, I do expect Kareem Hunt to score a touchdown, but Mahomes over 1.5 touchdown passes, probably my favorite play tonight overall in this football game.
I like that look a lot, DRS. Kareem Hunt to hit Pater is minus 190. He has been such a staple of this offense for KC. Expensive, but probably justified. The numbers on the other side for the backs, always intriguing. Is it the rookie, Bucky Irving? Could it be the other rookie, Sean Tucker? How much is Rashad White going to factor in to this conversation? The numbers are limited because of the split production, but also because of how stout KC has been. Mahomes last week, multiple touchdown passes for the first time in a month. Baker Mayfield has thrown 3 passing touchdowns in 4 consecutive games at least. He's got 13 in the last 4, but he's thrown multiple interceptions in the last 3 games as well. Mahomes an INT in all 7 games this year, 9 in total. But I lean KC in a big way tonight. It would not be the start of a new week live right here on the early line without the Monday prop perspective from SportsGrid's Tom Vecchio. Vecchio joins us here to look at Monday Night Football, his best bets for the end of week number 9, and a couple of NBA thoughts as well. Robust slate in the association after only 3 games on a Sunday. Tom Vecchio, as always, we appreciate the time. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I think we are in for a really solid Monday night game tonight. I think we're in for a decent amount of scoring. If I had to make a super exact prediction, I would say the Chiefs win. They don't cover, which has kind of been a trend for a lot of these larger teams. And we land right on the total. So if I had to make a specific prediction, it would be 27-20 final score. Chiefs win. That means they don't cover. And we land right at that total with maybe a late touchdown or a field goal.
Vecchio firing away to start. You see the numbers there, Tom. 9.5-point spread, total at 45 and a hook. So as you gave us your prediction, the Chiefs don't cover, but they win comfortably. How do we get that game flow? What does it look like in terms of the result that leads to the outcome?
Well, from the Chiefs side of things, I think one of their clear goals tonight should be to get DeAndre Hopkins more involved. I'm not going to say a slow week for him last time out, 2 catches for 29 yards. It was his first game with the team. He was with the team for, 3 days, 4 days, whatever it was, 2 days of practice, whatever it might be. So I expect him to be a little bit more involved tonight. I do like him for a TD tonight. And oftentimes I come here and say like, oh, this is the Javonte Williams game, and I expect him to cruise past his numbers. Tonight is the DeAndre Hopkins game, and his line is sitting at 42.5. Frankly, I like him going for 50 plus, 60 plus, maybe even 70 plus yards. And ultimately, 70 plus yards isn't a big ask, especially going up against this Bucs defense. They're around 255 passing yards per game. That's the 3rd most in the league. So if I'm expecting the Chiefs to get out and score, asking for 60 or 70 yards, isn't a massive ask when we have Pat Mahomes. And granted, he hasn't been the best version of himself. But again, my point being, they brought in DeAndre Hopkins for a reason. Get him the ball, get him a touchdown, and let's get him involved in the offense. Let's get things moving.
It's up to the quarterbacks to get those wide receivers involved in the offense. Let's take a look at 2 gunslingers tonight. Patrick Mahomes taking on Baker Mayfield. If we're looking at the passing prop totals, 247.5 for Patrick Mahomes. Baker Mayfield, 236.5. The touchdown props, Patrick Mahomes over 1.5, juiced at -120. Baker Mayfield the same, 1.5, but at a plus 146. Expectations for Mahomes and Mayfield tonight, Tom?
I think Mayfield, honestly, I think he cruises past this number. I like him over the yards. I like him over the attempts. And it's going to be a game script thing, not to mention the fact that the Chiefs, they allow 82 rushing yards per game. That's the 3rd lowest in the league, right? And I know that they're going to be without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but at a certain point, they're going to be passing the ball because they're going to be playing from behind. And this is just going to be garbage time yards, right? It doesn't matter who he's throwing to. It doesn't matter, how he's getting there. So over 34.5 attempts, I like him over the yards. If he hits over 260 or 275 yards in a losing effort, are we going to be surprised given what we've seen from Baker when he's gone over this passing number in 4 of the last 5 games? Some of these games he's up at 45 passing attempts. So it's kind of just an attrition thing at a certain point where he's going to get the yards even if it's late in the 4th quarter.
Mayfield leads the NFL in passing touchdowns, 21. He has thrown at least 3 in the last 4 games for the Buccaneers, 13 total in that span, but to the tune of 7 interceptions in the last 3 games as well. Multiple INTs in all 3 of the last games entering for the Buccaneers. Mahomes has thrown an INT in all 7 games for KC this year. Still a negative touchdown to INT ratio, 8 TDs to 9 INTs. But for the first time, Patrick Mahomes, multiple touchdown tosses last week in nearly a month. So with Mahomes struggling at times, they have counted on the old friend, Kareem Hunt, who has come into the injured backfield and has looked really good. Vecchio, a hefty price if you think Hunt finds pay dirt once again tonight at -190. What's your approach to KC's offensive plan and how it pertains to the backfield?
Well, they get out and score. Hopefully it's via DeAndre Hopkins, as I said, but ultimately I think they'll be controlling the game, and that's going to be with Kareem Hunt. So I'm not going to a -190 touchdown price. I don't think I've ever done that. That's not a spot that I'll be looking to go to. Over 16.5 attempts, that's the spot to go. He's been over this mark in 3 straight games. The only time he was under this mark was that first game he was with the team going up against the Chargers, and not too much of a surprise to see him under that mark, in his first game when they signed him, off his couch at home. So he's been seeing 20-plus carries, and that's what we're going to be in for tonight. Again, if I'm expecting the Chiefs to be out ahead, I think Hunt has a huge game. He could easily go over his yards, but I specifically like the attempts tonight.
Tom, easy to focus here on obviously the Chiefs because you're looking at Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, but you're expecting Baker Mayfield possibly to have a big night tonight. You're going to get some cheap prices on some of those other guys here for the Bucs. Not a lot listed. Cade Otton, Jalen McMillan, and then a couple running backs, Rashad White and Bucky Irving. Who are we going to look to tonight from a Bucs perspective at wide receiver?
I think Cade Otton is probably the safest. We saw him have a huge game, over the past few, especially stepping up with Godwin and Evans out. I think Bucky Irving would be too. When it comes to wide receivers, I think McMillan is fine. I don't know if Sterling Shepard's going to play tonight or not. Like, we know he has a connection with Baker dating back to college, but it's kind of just like a pick your poison. Like, if you are super high on one of them, if you think McMillan's going to have a good game, and again, Baker's going to have 260 yards just because they're going to be passing the ball, you got to be like all in on that spot. But I specifically, I think Otton's fine. I think Bucky Irving's the best running back that they have. And I don't expect Sean Tucker to play a big role if they're not going to be running the ball a whole lot. Irving would be the passing game option.
52.5, that receiving yards prop for Cade Otton. It's been steady this year for Baker Mayfield, even when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were out there last week in the first game without those top two targets. 10 targets for Otton, 9 grabs, 81 yards, 2 of the 3 touchdowns that Baker Mayfield threw to Otton. All right, Vecchio, let's put up the top props once again. Make sure everybody has those down for this Monday Night Football game before we get over to the NBA. There it is. Lock it in. Get those picks in. Fantastic. All 30 NBA teams, Vecchio, in action around the association on this Monday night, including Paul George making his debut for Philadelphia. The Sixers on the road in the Valley tonight, taking on the Suns. 7.5-point spread in favor of Phoenix. What does Paul George do for the Sixers team in making his debut tonight?
Ultimately, it comes down to how many minutes will he be playing, and I haven't seen a report on if there's a specific amount that he will be playing. It is a West Coast game, so we may get that note later in the day. Ultimately, the best spot to go, I still think, is going to be Tyrese Maxey over 26.5 points. If they want to get Paul George involved, I think that's obviously a given. But again, how many minutes will he be playing will determine, how the volume of shots that he's going to get. So, I tweeted about Maxey going for the season, averaging over 28.5 points because he was sitting around 26 last year. And if Paul George and Joel Embiid aren't going to be playing a full set of games, I still think this offense is going to be driven by Maxey. So once we see Embiid come back, I think we're going to see Maxey's number drop, and ultimately that's the best spot to be going. So I don't care if Paul George is in. I don't care if he's playing 15 minutes. I don't care if he's playing 25 minutes. Maxey is still the answer for the 76ers this season.
How about the answer coming up for Giannis here to try to rescue the Milwaukee Bucks, sitting at a worst in the Eastern Conference, 1-5? Who are they taking on tonight? Cleveland, a perfect 7-0 and a 7.5-point line for the home team. The Cavaliers in a total of 229. Did the Cavaliers stay perfect tonight, Tom?
Stay perfect? I don't know. It's basketball. There's variance on a week-to-week basis. Ultimately, I think the best spot to go is Jared Allen. Like, the Bucks just aren't rebounding the ball to start the year. So Jared Allen over 11.5 rebounds is sitting at plus 104. The Bucks are 25th in rebounds per game, which is not something you would expect, or not something we've seen from them. This team that with the Antetokounmpo, with Brook Lopez, with Bobby Portis, like, these players should be rebounding the ball, and they're just failing to do so. So I don't know if they just haven't flipped the switch yet because it's early in the season, but give me Jared Allen, who has gone over this number in 5 of the 7 games. He's picking up 17 and 15 boards, as he's been known to do throughout his career. So I like the Bucks. I think they cover. I'm not sure if they win tonight, but I specifically like Allen tonight going over with the boards.
The Bucks beat the shorthanded Sixers in the season debut, have lost 5 straight since, have not covered in any of those games, including at home over the weekend against Cleveland as a 2-point favorite, losing that game outright by a point. The Cavaliers remain perfect, the only in the Eastern Conference. They have covered in all 7 wins as well. Tom Vecchio, time is appreciated always, my man. More on the early line up next. The ending of week number 9, Monday Night Football tonight in Arrowhead, the home of the 2-time reigning Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, the home of the only undefeated team left in the NFL. KC enters 7-0, heavily favored to make it a perfect 8-4-8, 9.5-point spread, DRS, in favor of the Chiefs. 45.5 is the total. Let's start with the spread and thus the money line. Are the Chiefs in any danger of dropping their first game of the year outright tonight against Baker and the Bucks?
Yeah, no shot. No shot. They're winning this football game. Again, if they're the somewhat healthy, it's crazy too. Like the Kansas City Chiefs are healthier at the wide receiver position than Tampa Bay. Is kind of wild to say, but it just goes to show how much Tampa Bay has been through. For my money tonight, I don't think there's any way that they're going to lose this game. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I would agree, DRS. I believe Kansas City will be 8-0 at the end of the night. But that's not what we do here. We don't just say this team that's minus 460 on the money line is going to win, so pick them outright. Will KC cover as a 9.5-point favorite? That is the question. The Buccaneers have not covered in 3 consecutive games as a dog. 7 wins in 7 games this year for Kansas City. They have covered the number in 5 of 7. But Donnie, a 6.5-point favorite 3 times this year for KC. Just 1 and 2 against the spread. Hefty number in favor of the Chiefs tonight. Can they win this game by double digits?
I believe they can, but also just going over through some of the weather stuff here, just saw that little cloud pop up on my screen here. Rain is in the forecast, precipitation over 50%. So we're going to see that tonight. Windy conditions, not necessarily, because yesterday we talked about it so much on the desk, Ben, with that game between the Green Bay Packers and Detroit. It was like, boy, do we really know how bad this is going to be? Gusts up to 30 miles an hour. It rained all the way through, and it was terrible. So could this be more of a ground attack? And also, who would that really favor? Like Mahomes, I think, can operate in any weather, just the way he plays. Their passing game should be fine, and Kareem Hunt should be an absolute jackhammer in this game, where you don't really look towards the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as leaning on the ground game. But that could affect some things where we talk about this game staying probably under the total. That might be another little hindrance here for that game getting over. So I just wanted to start there. But for my money on this, the Kansas City Chiefs, the total, probably staying more to the under. But I do think that's a win in the cover still for the Kansas City Chiefs.
DRS, speaking of that weather, the rain and the wind yesterday at Lambeau. Number was 47.5. I had seen the bad weather projected, just forgot to bet the total. New York City Marathon here yesterday, out and about, having a great time. On the cab ride home, tuned into Red Zone, saw how bad it was coming down in Lambeau. Even after the Packers scored that initial field goal, I still bet the number, losing a couple of points at 45.5 live to the under, stayed well under. And frankly, here we are again. The Chiefs' offense has been okay. It hasn't been overly prolific because of the injuries, and frankly, because Patrick Mahomes has not been his stellar self. 8 touchdowns, but to 9 interceptions. He has thrown an INT in all 7 games for KC this year. Under in 4 of 7. But Donnie, here we are again. The Chiefs' defense has been elite this season. 3rd best scoring defense in the NFL, holding the opposition to 20 points or less in 6 of 7. The only team to break through 20, the Bengals, who scored 25 in week number 2. Now, the Bucs have been airing it out, and we expect the same out of Baker Mayfield, even without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Can they score enough to push us to an over tonight of 45.5? That seems to be my question. I lean under.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on this because like Baker Mayfield with 2 top wide receivers can go toe-to-toe with any defense here. He's a gunslinger. It's what he does. Interceptions and touchdowns, usually great for the over. But look at the starting wide receivers. Jalen McMillan, who is a good college wide receiver coming into the pros, trying to make a name for himself, but he was supposed to make the 3 or 4 option here on this team. Now he's thrust into number 1. Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard, who might not go tonight with an injury, Raheem Jarrett, Ryan Miller, and then it leaves you with Cade Otton. I just don't see the explosive plays on offense. And also, Ben, we talk about Kansas City. Like, again, it wasn't a few short years ago. It's like, hey, you know what, Spags? Just give me a stop in the 4th quarter so we can win a football game. This is a legitimately good defense on Kansas City where if you're adding in some rain and not a lot of weapons here, why is Tampa Bay going to get close to 16 to 20 points? That's the question.
Over in 5 straight for the Bucs, the 3rd best scoring offense in the NFL, averaging nearly 29.5 points per game. In fact, this Tampa team has scored 26 points or more in 5 consecutive games. They've also allowed 27 points or more in 4 straight games. It's why they have been such an over team. I think now 2nd week without those 2 top targets. Does it regress slightly in a negative way? That is why I lean under. Donnie, if you had to pick your favorite prop bet of the night, what gets your attention?
Even with the rain, it's Patrick Mahomes over 1.5 touchdown passes. He's got a lot of weapons here as we talked to Tom here. This has got to be one of those DeAndre Hopkins. We're going to be a couple red zone targets. That's what you got him for. Travis Kelce, great red zone target. And also, don't keep out there a little Xavier-worthy trickeration here, or maybe a pop pass in the red zone specifically if it's slick surface. That's something to watch out for. That's touchdown passes, baby.
Can we get a pop pass to a backup tight end tonight to bring somebody through the door? Might be what Joe Lisi is yelling out if he bet on Noah Gray somehow, some way. You heard that Tom Vecchio was really in on DeAndre Hopkins. DRS, bad on me, I get. DeAndre Hopkins last year, Nuke, at the age of 32, he turned 32 in the summer, still was over a 1,000-yard receiver for the Titans last year. Did you know that? I kind of forgot about that. The production has still been there, although he wasn't DeAndre Hopkins of his Texans season. Again, I kind of like what Vecchio was saying here. 44.5 could be light if the passing offense with Mahomes is pretty solid against the Buccaneers secondary that has not been great all year.
And by the way, here's what your boy doesn't need tonight, Ben, as I talked about that rate in the forecast. It's humid enough where we might see a lightning delay. Come on, your boy can't get in with 2:30 tonight. Maybe if you're winning betting tickets here at this point, that would help out. But I see stuff like that in the month of November. It's very disheartening, Ben. It's very disheartening.
I mean, DRS is going to be staying up anyway to watch Baylor and Gonzaga. You would think he wouldn't mind just sitting in the studio.
Switch over live to that game. Yeah.
For sure. NFL football in-game live game day becomes Gonzaga Baylor college basketball in-game live game day. Sounds pretty good. VJ Edgecombe going off over his points prop. Graham Ike, Ryan Nemhard. Andrew is his older brother who also played at Gonzaga. By the way, Kareem Hunt, minus 190, two-hit paydirt. DRS, he scored 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games for KC.
By the way, Casey and Tom might be the preemptive here, late night here before we hand it over to the early line tomorrow. This game might finish so late. You never know.
Well, no, you got to get some energy. Yeah, you got to get some energy Joker in there. Come on. McLuck, baby.
Big coins, big coins, big coins.